It was supposed to be a quiet getaway, a weekend at a secluded beach house on the edge of the Atlantic, where the waves whispered secrets to the shore and the wind carried stories of forgotten souls. Mia and her 3 friends, Liam, Noah, and Sarah, had found the house online. It was old, Victorian in design, perched on a dune with weather-beaten wood and a wraparound porch that faced the endless sea. The listing had seemed too cheap to be real, but they shrugged it off. After all, it was just a weekend by the beach. When they arrived, the air was thick with mist, and the sky looked heavy as though it carried the weight of an untold warning. The house stood silent, its blackened windows staring out like hollow eyes, the kind that had seen too much. As they stepped out of the car, the smell of salt and decay mingled with the breeze. The waves crashed softly in the distance, and a single seagull circled above before disappearing into the fog. Inside, the air felt stale. The wooden floors creaked with every step, and dust clung to every corner as though the house hadn't seen life in years. Old portraits lined the hallway, people from another time. Their faces half faded, but their eyes somehow sharp, almost alive. Mia brushed past one frame, and for a second, she swore the woman's eyes followed her. Liam laughed when she mentioned it, teasing her for being jumpy. They unpacked, lit candles, and tried to fill the silence with laughter and music. But no matter how loud they spoke, it was as if the house absorbed their voices, swallowing sound into its hollow ribs. That night, the first strange thing happened. Mia couldn't sleep. The wind outside had grown violent, howling through the cracks in the windows. She heard what sounded like footsteps pacing on the porch, slow, deliberate, like someone testing each plank of wood. She sat up, heart racing, and looked toward the window. There was nothing there, just the ocean, restless and dark. Then she heard it again, tap, tap, tap. This time closer. She reached for her phone's flashlight and aimed it toward the window. For a brief second, the light caught something, a face, pale and wet, pressed against the glass. She screamed, waking the others. When they searched, there was nothing outside but sand and sea. No footprints, no sign of anyone. Liam tried to calm her down, saying it was probably her imagination. But Mia knew what she saw. That face, it wasn't human. The skin looked bloated, like it had been underwater for days, and the eyes were empty. The next morning, the storm had worsened. The road back to town was flooded, and their phones had no signal. Trapped, they decided to make the best of it. But the house seemed to come alive with the storm. Doors opened on their own, mirrors fogged up with handprints, and at one point, Sarah screamed when she found wet sand, footprints leading from the front door to her bed. By afternoon, the group's laughter had turned to uneasy silence. The atmosphere grew heavier. Noah, trying to keep everyone's spirits up, found a hidden door under the stairs. Behind it was a cellar, filled with old furniture and sea chests covered in salt stains. There, among the debris, they found something strange, a wooden box wrapped in oil-soaked cloth. Inside was a bundle of old letters and a small silver locket. Mia opened the locket to find a photo of a woman and a child, both wearing 1800s beach attire. Behind the picture was a small inscription scratched into the metal. "Till the sea returns what it took." That night, they decided to sleep in the living room together, too scared to stay in separate rooms. The storm outside screamed like something alive, and the house trembled with each gust. Around midnight, the candles flickered, and the lights went out completely. In the pitch black, Mia heard whispering. It was faint at first, like a distant hum. But soon the voices grew clearer, pleading, desperate, like dozens of people crying from underwater. "Give it back! Give it back!" Suddenly, the old radio on the mantel crackled to life. Even though it wasn't plugged in, static filled the room, and then, through the noise, a woman's voice whispered, "He's still here." The group froze. Noah, trembling, grabbed a flashlight and shone it toward the radio. The beam caught a figure standing in the corner, a man, drenched, his clothes torn and dripping seawater onto the wooden floor. His head turned slowly toward them, eyes hollow, skin gray like rotted driftwood. Before anyone could scream, the figure vanished. Panic erupted. They ran upstairs, locking themselves in a bedroom. Sarah sobbed uncontrollably, while Liam tried to rationalize what they saw. But the whispers continued, now louder, circling the room. The walls seemed to breathe. expanding and contracting as though the house itself was alive. Mia clutched the locket tighter, realizing the woman in the picture looked eerily similar to one of the portraits downstairs. As the night dragged on, exhaustion pulled them into uneasy sleep. Mia dreamt of the sea, black waves crashing against the shore, and from beneath the surface, hundreds of pale hands reaching out, pulling her down. When she awoke at dawn, her hands were wet with salt water. By morning, the storm had subsided. The house stood eerily still, as if nothing had happened. They tried once more to find a signal, but their phones remained dead. When Mia went to the porch, she found something new in the sand, a row of footprints leading from the water's edge to the stairs. Only this time there were 5 sets, not 4. She called the others, but when they came outside, the footprints were gone, erased by the wind. Only a whisper lingered in the air. Carried by the ocean breeze, "You can't leave." "Not yet." Mia turned back to the house, and for the first time, she noticed it wasn't just old, it was watching them. The windows reflected nothing, not even the sky. Just black, endless emptiness. She knew then, whatever lived in that house hadn't finished with them. Morning brought no relief, only a dreadful stillness that seemed worse than the storm itself. The air inside the beach house was heavy, like it had been trapped there for decades. Dust particles floated in the dim light that seeped through the fogged windows. The group sat around the table, pale and exhausted, their faces drawn tight with fear. No one spoke for a long while until Noah broke the silence. "We need to get out of here. I don't care if we have to walk through the flood." But when they stepped outside, the landscape had changed. The road that led to the main town was gone, completely swallowed by the sea. The waterline had risen, lapping almost at the edge of the porch, and the ocean stretched endlessly where land should have been. Mia stood frozen, gripping the railing. "That's impossible," she whispered. "It wasn't like this yesterday." Liam's voice shook. "It's like the sea's moving closer." The waves churned violently, and for a brief moment Mia thought she saw figures in the water, shadowy forms, standing still beneath the surface, watching. Then they vanished as the tide rolled in again. Inside, the house seemed different. The walls that were once dull gray now pulsed faintly, as if something behind them was alive. The portraits in the hallway appeared changed, too. The faces older, sadder, and in one, the woman's eyes now streamed black tears down her painted cheeks. Mia gasped, stumbling backward. Sarah rushed over, trembling. "We're not alone here." "We never were." They decided to search the house for answers, hoping to find something, anything, that explained what was happening. In the attic, under layers of dust and cobwebs, they found a trunk marked with the same initials as the locket. EM inside was a journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. The entries were from 1893, written by a woman named Eliza Moore, the wife of a sea captain. The final entries chilled them to the bone. "The storm took the ship. My husband and son were never found. The sea promised to return what it took. But now I hear them whisper at night, calling from the shore. I've built this house to wait for them. But the sea never forgets. It wants us all." As Mia read the final words, a cold wind blew through the attic, though no window was open. The candle flickered, and for a heartbeat, a figure stood behind her reflection in the mirror. Eliza herself, in a drenched dress, her face pale and cracked like porcelain. "He's still waiting," the ghost whispered, before vanishing in a burst of icy air. They ran downstairs, hearts pounding. The floorboards groaned under invisible weight. The front door slammed shut on its own, trapping them inside. Every window was suddenly covered with a thin layer of frost, despite the warm ocean air outside. Liam shouted, "This house! It's alive!" The lights flickered violently and then went out. In the dark, the sound of dripping water echoed from somewhere deep below. Noah grabbed a flashlight, and they followed the noise to the cellar. The cellar was colder than before, the air thick with the scent of seawater. As they descended, the walls glistened with moisture, and something was written there in salt. "Return what is mine." Mia clutched the locket instinctively. "It's the locket," she whispered. "That's what it wants." But before she could react, the ground trembled. The old wooden chests in the cellar burst open, spewing out seawater and rotten seaweed. From within the puddles, Ghostly figures began to emerge, pale sailors with hollow eyes, their mouths gaping open in silent screams. Their clothes hung in tatters, dripping brine, and their hands reached out toward Mia. The flashlight flickered, illuminating their waterlogged faces. One of them, his eyes glassy and vacant, looked straight at her. "Eliza," he moaned. Mia screamed. Liam pulled her back as the ghosts advanced, their bodies half submerged in water that was rising fast. Sarah slipped, falling into the pool, and when Noah reached out to grab her, a ghostly hand pulled her under. The water went red for a moment, then still. Sarah was gone. "Run!" Liam shouted. They scrambled up the stairs, the sound of rushing water chasing them. The entire house was flooding from below, and the air filled with a distant, echoing cry that sounded like the sea itself roaring in anger. The doors upstairs began to slam open and shut on their own, each one revealing glimpses of the past, ghostly visions, flickering like broken film reels. They saw Eliza crying on the porch, her husband's corpse washing ashore. They saw her building this house brick by brick, waiting for him. And finally, they saw her hanging from the rafters, the locket in her hand as waves crashed outside. The visions vanished. Mia dropped to her knees, shaking. "She's trapped here," she said through tears. "And now we are too." Noah stumbled to the window. The sea was now at the doorstep, waves slamming against the house with monstrous force. Lightning illuminated the dark sky, and for a brief moment, the reflection in the window wasn't theirs. It was the faces of the drowned. They were surrounded. The house groaned as if something massive moved beneath it. The floorboards buckled, and the sound of cracking wood echoed through the hallways. Suddenly, the entire structure tilted as though it were being dragged toward the sea. "Hold on!" Liam yelled, grabbing Mia's arm. They clung to the staircase as water burst through the front door, flooding the first floor. The ghosts returned, swirling within the water, their mouths opening wide as if to scream, but no sound came out, only the hollow rush of the tide. Mia, gasping, clutched the locket once more. "If we return it, maybe it will stop," she cried. She opened the locket and threw it into the water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding light filled the room. The water froze mid-motion, the ghosts halted, and a woman's voice echoed. Through the air, soft, sorrowful, and eternal. "Thank you." The light faded, and the water receded, draining into the floor as if swallowed by the earth. The house grew silent again, eerily calm. Mia looked around. Noah and Liam were both gone. She was alone. The next thing she remembered was waking up on the beach, the house standing quietly behind her. The sky was clear, the tide gentle. She stumbled to her feet, disoriented, calling out her friends' names, but there was no answer, only the whisper of the sea. When she turned back toward the house, her heart froze. It looked exactly the same as before, aged, abandoned, but now there was something new. In one of the upstairs windows, she saw 3 shadowy figures standing side by side, watching her. Panicking, she ran toward the car parked on the sand. Though she didn't remember leaving it there, the engine started instantly. She didn't look back until she was miles away. Even then, she thought she saw the outline of the house reflected in the rear view. Mirror, smaller, but still there, waiting. Weeks later, Mia returned to the city trying to forget. But the nightmares wouldn't stop. Every night she dreamed of the sea rising again, of voices whispering, "You never left." Then one evening, while scrolling online, she froze. A new real estate listing had appeared. The same house, same photos, but the title read "Beach House Recently Renovated, Now Available." The first image showed the porch, clean and restored. The second showed the living room. And in the third, Mia saw herself, standing by the window, staring out at the ocean. Her hands shook. She clicked on the listing again, but it disappeared, replaced by an error message, "Page not found." Mia's phone buzzed suddenly. A new notification popped up. It was a message from an unknown sender. The subject line simply said, "Update." Inside was a single photo. The beach house under a stormy sky. The word "Welcome back" written across the sand. She dropped the phone, her blood running cold. Then came a faint sound from the hallway. A creak. The same wooden groan the beach house had made. Slowly, she turned toward the noise. The floor was wet. A trail of salt water led from her apartment door to the window overlooking the city. Beyond the glass, for a brief, impossible moment, she saw it, the same house, standing on the shoreline, its windows glowing faintly red. And then she heard it, Eliza's voice, distant yet crystal clear. "You can't escape the sea. It always returns what it takes." The lights in the apartment flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the reflection of the darkened window, Mia wasn't alone anymore. Behind her stood the drowned, watching in silence. Some say that if you ever find that beach house listing online, don't click it. Because every time it reappears, it means the sea is looking for a new guest, and it never forgets.